Be advised that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
You are what you watch.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to GNN. My name is Harry Tambuatco. Welcome to 2014. When we start the year, what happens is we change the content of most of the topic in media. We give you a glimpse of what it is we can expect for the coming year. Just like before we end the year, like in 2013, most media, local and international, start focusing on what you call the highlights. Now, it's 2014, we're on to the first week. It's actually Three King holiday today, which is no longer a Catholic holiday in the country. We're back to work. After all, after 21 days of out of work, we got to get back in the grind. Pero ano po maganda tignan dito? Kailangan sana tignan natin ano kaya pwede mangyari dito sa 2014. Ano kaya mangyayari? So I thought, sino kaya magandang maigi maimbita para mapag-usapan to? Ladies and gentlemen, I have an old friend. She was in media long before she started her PR agency, her lobby group. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, it's the only professional registered lobby group in the country. Although they don't necessarily just do government, they do private sector as well. From Publicus, we have the general manager and the founder of the Publicus group, Mlou Tequia. Hi, Mlou.
Hi, Harry. Good
Thanks
evening.
for being with us. I hope you don't mind the topic para maiba naman.
Yeah.
Before the show, you and I were talking about all the different sensitive points of government, the politics. Pinoy, of course, and all the henchmen and all the people around. Ang dami nangyayari, eh, no? But let's look at 2014, Mlou. Let's start first. Give a short mention, konting local politics lang for 2014 before we even go around the world, and where we think the world is going, both politically, economically, even spiritually if need be, because we have a new pope na naiiba, no?
Very
Iba,
good,
naiiba itong papa natin, Santo Papa. He's, I think, I hope he stays alive long enough because the Vatican is also full of politics as well.
Yes.
Here in the Philippines, okay, we just hurdled Yolanda, or the people in the Yolanda, the Hainan typhoon, the devastation, are beginning to stand up. Alam mo naman, you've been down there. You've been very, very active. Okay, let's look at first Central Visayas, 2014. Where are we? Where do you think it's going?
I think Central Visayas will define this administration. It's one of the poorest regions.
It's always been.
It's always been. Yeah. One of the poorest provinces, too. Yes. So whatever plans you have for Central Visayas, those two things will have to take into consideration. That it has to be an economic model. It's not just an infrastructure model that you're looking into, but it's really trying to uplift decades of poverty in the area by coming up with economic solutions to the crisis.
So, nangyari, because of the crisis, it's become an opportunity of sorts.
Right. It should be viewed that way. It should not be viewed as a, as a problem, a dilemma, but it's a challenge to rethink and come up with outside the box thinking of how do we now cure poverty in a decades-old poverty.
But not because of the government, our government, but because of the international interest. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
The eyes are looking down on Tacloban.
Tacloban,
diba?
yeah.
Yun talaga tinitignan kasi nabigyan talaga ng media attention.
And I think there will be a lot of donations coming in for rehabilitation and rebuilding.
And still is.
And still is. And we've had the first few reports on the bunk system, bunk houses.
The 24
that you have
square meters.
Of course, it will be reported internationally because in all of the year-end reports of global media outlets, Yolanda figured into it.
If you were the president and I was Amanpur, as I go back 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, Mrs. President, you realize that the typhoon, you will be judged by what's happening with the typhoon. What do you have to say about that?
I would say yes, and I would say these are what I'm planning to do. Just, top 3 things that I plan to do.
Pun intended on the president. That's why I was doing that purposely. But yes, how would you answer that? Yeah.
Oh yeah, one is to look for the economic model that you want.
Like you said, yes.
Like cash for work, food for work.
That was a good idea.
Those things will have to be considered in the short term. In the middle term, in the long term, probably as
Economic.
as a warehousing hub for Cebu or for the region. There's got
Even
to be some
agriculture, why not?
complementary industries to assist the area to grow and to help Cebu still maintain its growth.
But Cebu is already a powerhouse. It's the rest of the area.
That's why
Yung
it's
gitna lang,
it's very critical for Cebu to put these areas into the equation.
Oh, hindi lang sila.
Hindi lang sila. Kumbaga, what are the industries that Cebu is known for? How can we complement?
Dami, marami,
Di ba? How
marami,
can we complement? Can you outsource the
Correct,
putting together of the wood,
tama yan,
finished
tama yan.
product na sa Cebu? Those things.
Let's look at the politics. Philippines, short term. We're looking 2014. Not the elections. Malalayo pa yan, 2016. We have the president and the Philippines. Quick outlook.
Oh, I think 2014 will be a political year, very hotly contested political movements. Why? Because actually the president has only 1.5 years to govern. Beyond that,
Oo nga, no, that's right.
beyond that,
Technically,
it's really politics already.
politics.
So
Election
once Congress opens January and there is again a problem of attendance, quorum, then
will
you would
happen?
see either the president doesn't have a hold of Congress or the party, the liberal, the so-called before Volkswagen to a tourist bus, now a humongous vehicle, disintegrating.
Without the DAP, does he become an inutile president?
Well, without the DAP, probably by 2015, because right now with 2014, he
Meron
was
ng
able to
budget.
get the GAA and the
Okay, sir.
supplemental budget na wala pa yung DAP ruling. So technically, I can still, do so many things around with the budget.
Pag 2015, may inutil na siya niya.
Oo,
May hirapan
especially we're looking at the Supreme Court coming up with a ruling within the first quarter of this year.
na. January 28, if I'm not mistaken.
So by that time, would probably see how the budget process will take shape in 2015.
Enough of the Philippines. Because after all, it's a global world. We all work with our laptops. We are always incommunicado now. Always. No office works without the computer.
Right.
And the library is now in front of us.
Right.
Information is at our fingertips. And we try to understand where the world is going, be it for climate change, disasters, war, countries pushing one other country and whatnot. Where do you think the world in general lang, before we start going to different parts of the world, how do you see the world in 2014? Specific lang, very short analysis, economics-wise. Will we prosper? Will you think it'll get worse?
Well, I think it will. The growth will be there, but whether it's sustainable and whether there is equality is another issue. I think
That's a nice point. There's growth, but equality may not be the same.
Yes,
There might be.
yes.
So, dadaming bilyonaryo, pero ang poor, pareho pa rin.
Oo, and I think that's felt in any country.
So, hindi lang tayo.
Hindi lang tayo. Kasi may kagustuhang umangat, pero hindi umaangat dahil yung mga naandon, gusto sa kanila lang yung pag-angat. So there are problems.
So,
Even
hindi
in
lang
the US.
Yes, so it's not only the
it's
Philippines
felt.
pala.
Yes, even
Okay.
in the USSR,
Even,
the
yes.
former USSR,
Yes,
which
yes.
is trying to put together its
Yes.
now with this group of Putin.
Yes,
That is
Putin's.
putting together the old USSR as independent
Trying.
independent societies. So you will see the issue of equality and equity. You will see issues of peace and ethnicity. as becoming problems, you will see problems of development and growth. Development in areas where it need be. And
You mean innovations in technology? Baka may bago.
could be, in Africa. Those are growth areas now.
But Africa strife with war, civil war, left and
But
right.
it's given the potential. I mean, China is there.
China's.
I mean,
But China is there because of specific natural resources.
minerals, yes.
Minerals lang.
So you see, if you
Yeah,
follow
well-
the movement of China, you know they're going into that because they see something in that country.
Yung ba dapat bantayan natin, China? China should, is it going to be the trendsetter, not America any longer, not Europe?
We're saying that we're in an Asian century. I would say hindi bantayan, but intindihin because we have more cultural
True, ties, yeah,
ties with them. They're in Asia, and we're in Asia. They're the biggest market. So if you're talking of
Our biggest
a
market
regional
as well,
market, I mean worldwide, China is
Worldwide.
really big. But if you're talking of a neighbor market, which is very close, China is it.
But we have issues with China. We've got the not the sensaku. We have our own territorial problems with China. That's not going to get in the way with us, the Philippines versus China,
I think
vis-a-vis
that
China.
the reason why territorial issues are coming up as flashpoints is essentially because of our relationship with the U.S. When the U.S. decided to do a pivot to Asia in recognition of the Asian century, we became like teammates in a tug war where if one moves, I will be there for you.
Kanino ka bot? Si China sa Amerika pagdating sa problema natin?
Ako sa China.
Talaga?
Oo.
Kasi yung grupo nila, Rafi Alunan,
Yeah.
sila Roy
Sila
Logoles.
Roy Logo- yeah.
Alam mo, mainit yan.
Oo,
Mainit na mainit yan.
oo,
They've
oo.
come on this show so many times and they've argued. One guy that argues together with you is Butch Valdez. He agrees we should ally more with the Chinese rather than Americans.
Kasi we can settle to disagree without solving the problem. I mean, it will be a festering issue, yes, but because we have like,
More to offer to us than
di
America
ba,
does.
there's a shared culture there.
Okay.
We have a shared history with the Americans,
Even
but with
financially.
China, we have a shared culture.
Mas malalim.
Mas malalim yun. Maraming in-check na nagpunta sa Pilipinas, maraming Pilipino
Nag-i-invest
nung
din doon.
martial law rin, nagsimula. Cultural Revolution, nagpunta sa
China,
China.
baliktad.
Oo, di ba? So, yung difference in language and translation
Minimal.
may cause the problems because there's a different intonation on some
okay,
Chinese,
okay.
which creates problems.
Oh, communication again.
But the point is, you have to understand China. Like, it's not a formalistic society like the Americans. They do not probably trust the UN as an arbiter because they don't, if you look at their cultural system and political system, they solve things among themselves.
But there's
So
no
it-
human rights. The law
Oh,
is slightly different.
of course, there's a lot of human rights issues.
Yes, with China specifically.
Yes. But just the same with the Philippines.
Bagay, meron din tayo. Ang tawag
Diba?
natin dito, extrajudicial killing.
Oo.
Yan ang tawag
At
natin
padami ng
dito.
padami, di ba?
So,
So-
tsaka now, riding in tandem. Yan,
Yeah.
Sa bagay, no? Ganun na
Oo.
rin pala yan, ano?
So yung sa China and sa US, kasi yung ating lugar, we have a very, very good location as a,
Yeah,
as a
strategic,
country.
without a doubt.
Very strategic. It's how you use it. You cannot close one door in favor of another power. You have to maintain that alliance with the two powers so that there's benefit for our country. And then you will see ASEAN integration by 2015,
That's
which
right.
means, ay, naku, lahat ng market,
Ikot-ikot na lang.
ekonomiya, kung wala kang karelasyon sa China, paano ka sa ASEAN integration?
Tatalo ka. But the
Diba?
government is moving towards the U.S., as you realize.
Yes, yes.
Pinoy and his cabinet.
But that is a strategic move. It should not be the only solution to the problem.
Mas malaki dapat ang outlook.
Oo.
Mas malaking picture.
Kasi when you look at Japan, South Korea, that problem area, three country nations to solve the problem. It
Mas
doesn't-
malala yun eh,
Mas
actually.
malala.
Mas malala
India,
yan.
Pakistan. That's in
Yun, wala na
Asia.
yan. That's gonna blow up soon.
Diba? So yung mga ganon, you cannot just be relying on one power, a power who domestically is weakened.
So we have to understand our neighbor and not
Right.
agitate them
That's
and not
right.
just say, alika mga Amerikano kasi meron kayo dito, ganyan.
Oo.
But the only military power in the world is still America, by far, bar none.
Agree,
Oo.
agree.
And the only one that can check China and its muscle flexing, if it is muscle flexing, is only America.
Agree.
Oo.
But you don't have to be the part of the fire.
Okay. In other words, let's not ignite it.
Oo, di ba? Parang
It's 2014, di ba?
Oo, you mediate,
Negosyo lang.
di ba? Oo. And if there is an agreement, let's jointly operate what is beneficial to both countries.
I'm glad you look at it that way. Do you think this government looks at it that way in a very holistic approach, a very pragmatic look on it rather than just siding with one or the other? Because from my point of view, it's very American-sided now.
That's right.
So you
Ganon.
don't think so?
No, that's the positioning, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Oo.
Hindi na, so there's parang incompetence so far in your point of view, nakikita natin.
Yes, because, global order is not just the U.S.
Hindi na, after all, who told them to be the world police?
Yes, di ba?
But they're acting like they
They're
are.
acting like, because there's a void if they stop acting like that. Because there'll be other nations who would want to act like that. I mean, like a Putin, who is doing a very, very good PR salvo in the U.S.
Iba rin si Putin.
Diba?
Yung turnaround niya ngayon.
Yeah, for you to be writing to the Washington
iba.
Post and, saying these things that I need to understand the culture of America.
Pero tinitira niya rin si Obama.
Yeah.
Let's go to America. Where do you find it's going now? Because there's a lot of confusion. Of course, you have the internal problems. America's trying, the public no longer want war. They're saying it very openly in all the polls. They're very confused with their politics between the Republicans and the Democrats. The media, being as free as it is, it confuses me when I listen to different people. It's not enough you watch CNN and NBC, and you've got to even read The Economist para makita mo other points of views. And when you do get all the points of views, you realize where you started is where you end. Confusion. I don't understand. America wants to control the budget, but it spends the most on the military. It wants to bring under its social net Obamacare, a wider number of people, and yet control that. And then the banking system, it's losing sight of where it is, and it's moving its money out of it, and it's accepting China. Ako naguguluhan ako, anong basa mo sa Amerika? We've always looked at America as a big brother,
Oh, yeah.
economically.
Yeah.
Diba?
When you look at the history of nations, you'd see probably the U.S. really
leader.
in a decline.
Now, not
With
diba?
all these problems,
Yes.
I was there when...
50 million below the poverty line.
Yeah. I was there when they had the closure. Yung budget, nila,
Unbelievable,
delay.
21 days.
I mean,
Unbelievable.
even the parks were closed. So,
Walang sweldo eh.
kung ikaw yung ordinary Joe, I mean, I'm not getting my salary. I'm not I'm putting food on my table.
Correct.
It's real politics to them. That's why you wouldn't be surprised when
Are
you
we
see...
going broke? Yun ang
Diba?
tanong nila, no?
When you see a woman driving her car straight to the
mali.
Washington, kasi talagang I feel it. You're affecting me. So and Americans are not that good in handling crisis. I mean, when you look at personal traits of Americans, whenever there's because they're so used to a gratifying society where
Economically high up.
diba? Oo, na I can get this very
The
convenient.
grocery is always open.
Yeah,
parang ganun.
yeah. But when suddenly there's closure, what do I do? Where do I get my... Tayo sanay
Panic.
doon.
Sanay tayo.
Kaya nga nasa-shock sila sa Yolanda eh. Because these people,
resilience natin,
they're
iba.
still smiling. That's a general conclusion. Why are you smiling?
Yung
Diba?
nga tanong ni Anderson Cooper,
Oh.
you have nowhere to sleep tonight. Di ba tinanong niya sa
Yeah,
babae,
yeah.
where are you gonna sleep?
There. Near my...
There, sabi niya.
Yeah.
And then he started laughing, parang, hindi ata, linoloko ata ako nito. Pero totoo yun, Pilipino eh.
Filipino.
But looking at America, they're confusing me. They're spending the most. They're still the world police when it comes to military power and flexing its muscles worldwide. The intelligence, of course, as we've seen. I mean, they're tapping to every phone around the world, as Snowden says. And yet the people, everyone has to look in. Obama's trying to do this from the way I see it. He wants to concentrate on the people. The Republicans still want to be the policemen of the world. The Democrats, hey, paalagaan mo naman kami, bumabagsak tayo. Do you think that will persist and the banking system will hold? You know, it's a very crucial year. Bernanke is out.
Yes.
The new woman has come in.
Yes.
I'm not sure of her background, but obviously she's some finance whiz.
Yes, yes.
You think America's going to make some wild changes for us in the world? Because whatever happens there, if America hiccups, we all cough.
I think,
Diba?
yes, I think there'll be a new economic order, globalization, privatization, IMF, those things might be passé. I think there'll be more
New
shared,
financial power?
that's possible. There might be sharing of resources, country to country. That's why trade blocks are very important these days. I think America, the reason why they have to go outside of their borders simply because their economy is based on defense.
Correct. Very nice. Very
So
well
so you need to
Kailangan.
kailangan,
exert,
'di ba, na tulungan yung iba, or else what will be the main industry in the US? So it's very crucial.
Jobs are not necessarily coming up.
Yes.
Employment is not necessarily prolific.
And from a very, very popular president,
Yes,
he's,
yes.
he's diving so fast that he is so old now. I mean, this young president, Mr. Obama, now looks very old with all these problems in the U.S. and the world.
Mlou, let's stop there for a while. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to take a break. We're at the bottom of the hour. It's an interesting thing to watch how the world, the globe moves as a whole and how each country works with each other. Alam mo, it's not like just the internet that we take for how we take it for granted that we get all this information and things move and the banks assume this and that. You know, one movement, there's an inertia of one that makes another. The study of the movement of the world, the characteristic of one country of another, and looking at the different natural resource makes this whole world go around. Very much like us. We might think and like to think that we can isolate ourselves because maybe we don't have too much of a debt, or maybe because malayo naman sa atin yan. It's not true. Don't fool yourself. When we get back, let's try to relate this to the corporate world that Ms. Tequia is very familiar with as well, and see how we can relate this with other movements. Alam nyo, no less the EU. You've got the Arab Spring. You've got Europe as a whole, financially. Even the banking system that is being under attack. And you've got the very rich Australia right under us, which is no longer affordable. Ladies and gentlemen, stay with us. We'll be right back. Hello, we're back, and just because we took a break doesn't mean we stopped discussing and talking. Ladies and gentlemen, we have from Publicus, we have Mlou Tequia. Mlou, let's talk about the EU. This is a very interesting point of view. Tayo sa Pilipinas, ang employment naman ng EU, malaki ba para sa mga OFW? Meron din, ano, si Italy, hindi sa Germany, sa London, malaki-laki rin tayo.
Professionals.
Professionals
Oo,
natin
in
sa mga
Germany.
OFW.
Oo.
Germany.
Oo.
Professionals.
Spain is a historical
Of course,
partner.
for 300 years we were under the Spanish.
Our notion of EU kasi depends on the OFWs.
That's
Diba?
right. Yeah,
But
correct.
we don't see EU as a trading partner. And they're big. Their
Yes.
exposure in the country is big. That's
Malakas ba trading natin sa
Oo.
EU as a whole?
as a whole. It's like Japan, US, I think number 4 is EU. So malakas siya in the sense na...
But the EU better do some PR in this country because it's not really an open fact.
In Yolanda, they're the
ang EU,
first.
grabe. They're the first.
Na bumaba, and the head of EU, the European Union itself, came here.
Pero kulang sila sa PR dito. Schumacher's the guy on top here, di ba? of the EU Commission or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
But kulang ata. I didn't realize that they were a strong trading partner for
Strong
us.
trading partner. They have so many projects, developmental projects here.
Sa Pilipinas.
Human rights. Oo. I was surprised.
Yeah.
Sabi ko, how come these things are not going around? It's not being discussed. Simply because,
Kulang sa information.
and they were saying, oh, the Philippines is so US-centric.
It's true, you know.
Diba?
It's true.
You-
Why do you think inuna ko America?
Oo,
Tsaka
diba?
ngayon China.
Pero ang EU, that's 28 countries. So if you're going to put together a trade pact,
It would be for
it's
28
28 countries. So
Where do you see that going, the EU as a whole? Kasi magulo rin ng EU, you know, they're talking 2015 if they're going to continue because the constitution is ending or something, whether they're going to continue it, and who's going to be the new head, and how is he going to get a salary, di ba? And I don't understand, how can the United States of Europe come about without a singular central bank? Hindi ko maintindihan yun eh.
Oo.
Di ba,
It's an
single
evolving
currency,
thing eh.
pero kanya-kanya central bank, pero yung history, lahat ng itong bayan, iba-iba. In fact, they were all in conflict. Correct? In the old world,
And in
the world
the-
was EU.
And I think in May, EU will have their own elections where Brazil will now chair the EU. Brazil, who has problems,
Yeah, I
where
know.
Prime Minister Merkel was dictating
yes.
to the Brazilian Prime Minister
Si
how
Rousseau.
to control, di ba? All those problems. So, yun, napakahalaga dahil, again, it's not just US. I
Where do
mean,
you see the EU as a whole with all their conflicts? The EU is a problem by itself, the association. But even the different countries.
the different countries, yes. And the way we understand them, it's still a challenge because doing business with them, it really means determining the kind of culture they have. Germans are straight
Yes,
forward
yes.
and, disciplined.
Discipline.
So, if you're a Filipino who wants to,
Pwede
diba?
na yan. Hindi
Diba?
pwede
Hindi
yan eh.
pwede yun.
Hindi pwede
So,
yan.
yung cultural nuances, pumapasok. In UK, there's so many professional Filipinos there. A lot of scholarships are now being offered by EU for Filipinos to go there and
How
study.
big is our exposure to the EU, the Philippines and the EU? Malaki-laki rin.
Malaki.
It's growing
I
and
just
growing.
don't have the data.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's growing more
It's
or
growing,
less.
it's growing.
So the EU does play a role, a major role in our economy and in our country as a whole.
Yeah, and
Maski
they
papano.
want to maintain the engagement.
Oh, interesting.
Diba? So it is the same way as with the Confederation of Independent States, which I was referring to the former USSR. Instead of, I don't know if it's Latvia or there was a former USSR state who wanted to enter EU.
Latvia.
Oo,
That's
yun
the
ba
last
yan?
one.
Oh, yan. So,
Ayaw nila kaya naggera.
ayaw
Nagrevolusyon.
nila. Ngayon, ang sabi ni Putin, dito ka na lang sa Confederation of Independent States. And when you
ng
look at the
Russo.
Confederation of Independent States, that's the former USSR.
Yes, the USSR.
So he's trying to
make a
maintain,
choice.
and he's trying to maintain a strategic influence on the former states.
And the people actually went on the streets because they want to join the USSR.
Yes.
And their prime minister said, no, I want to join Putin instead.
Yes, yes, yes.
Kaya nagkakagulo sila doon. Correct me if I'm...
Yeah,
no?
that's true, that's
okay,
true.
correct.
Oo. Kasi yung iba, you want to belong to a regional bloc to ensure your survival. Just like ASEAN integration. When we hit 2015, professionals from other ASEAN countries
Can
can
come
go
in.
here
And we can go
practice and work and, the borderless economy will be here in
But
ASEAN.
we are so protectionist in the Philippines, 64.
That is why we have to be ready. That is why
Do you see any movement in the Philippines
Wala.
towards that?
If-
We're not even starting.
I imagine the debate on the change of the opening of schools.
Oo, isa pa yun,
I mean, when
September.
you have Malacanang saying that it's up to Congress,
Yeah, walang posisyon eh, no?
di ba? Parang ano ka naman ASEAN integration nga. This is the chance of your professionals to really move.
Go around.
Yeah.
And for them, to challenge them to come here
Yes.
and improve the country.
And improve the
if Not,
country.
if not even invest. No, but we have so many limitations. You can't even own land. I don't understand why foreigners can't own land here. Parang if they go bankrupt, hindi naman nila pwede hukayin yung lupa. Dalhin nila sa bayan nila, di ba?
I think that's the reason why Speaker Belmonte is thinking of that constitutional amendment. Because really, if you have an ASEAN integration by 2015,
You have to allow that.
oo. Kasi dapat pareho ang rights and
So
privileges.
naiiwan ng batas natin
Naiiwan.
with the development of the rest of Asia.
Right,
At
right.
least the ASEAN.
Even the licensing of professionals.
I doubt that's
Naiiwan
going to be
yan.
open. Imagine the lawyers that can practice there and
Oh.
here. The IBP has never allowed that in the history of this country.
Well, I'm telling them it's going to be here. You got to be ready.
Well, at least engineers, doctors, you can take the bar there or the board.
But you'll be surprised, ha? Yung licensing natin dito, kakaunti lang. Architects,
O kakaunti lang.
kakaunti lang.
Not enough. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, the IBP count for lawyers, it's only up to 80,000 since 1952. Biro mo hanggang ngayon. Ilan lang, marami doon, patay na eh. Di ba?
oo.
So talagang, well, sa Maynila, marami, pero paglabas mo sa probinsya, wala, miski ano. So, okay, let's go back a little bit again. Let's look at Western Europe. Magulo rin dyan, not Western, the EU as a whole. Sila, well, you have financial problems. There's strife, there's a lot of movement, and there's a lot of realignment. Now, you've got the Arab Spring. Where do you think that's gonna end?
Oo, the
Ikaw,
Middle East.
Sila, no? Ako naman, sa layo nila, alam mo, ang worry ko dyan, we have a relatively big percentage of Filipino OFWs there. That's worrisome. But the Arab countries, I mean, America is getting less and less dependent with Saudi Arabia, with their shale gas.
Right,
And, so
right.
soon they will say, we don't need it anymore. Patayin Saudi. They have to go back now to their alliances. Sila, between Saudi and Iran, or Saudi, Iraq. Sila, di ba? Iran, Syria, yung mga alliances nila
Palestine,
versus,
Israel.
Israel.
But they're part of Asia. Di ba?
Kasama rin natin
Yun
yung
nga,
dapat.
sa laki ng Asia,
Oo nga, no? Asia nga pala yun.
Asia
ano?
sila.
Asia.
So when you have
But
Dubai,
there's civil war.
yeah,
And it's expanding.
these are emerging democracies.
That's how we should just look at it, straight like that.
Yeah, because they've been so used to a totalitarian type of leadership, of governance.
So you think the people of the world are beginning to change as a whole? The people are taking
I think
over?
the people of the world are seeing
They're making their governments answer to them
right,
slowly?
right, and if you cannot, if you cannot do your job, get
Take
out.
it out. Well, how come we haven't gotten rid of Pinoy?
Oh, we're a very patient. We're a very
So the
patient
Filipino
country.
is a very patient.
Oo,
malimutin.
Malimutin,
Tsaka we
oo.
have
At
Channel
saka,
27 to
baka
watch
naman
the show.
magbago, baka naman bagong taon, baka naman, di ba? That's usually how we
Going
say.
back to the Philippines, tingin mo meron pa tayong chance pwedeng pagbabago ng presidente? I mean, at least palitan niya kabinete niya to more competent or more aggressive, more proactive.
Yeah,
I'm not asking him because
I don't think-
he's given the mandate of the people. So siya na lang. Pero yung appointees niya,
pero
sana.
Harry, I don't think even changing him is the solution. There are several camps who are saying, 3 years and we're not, going anywhere. But my point is, change the cabinet.
Oh, di ba, no? Kabinete lang, yun
diba,
lang.
let's get more energy, let's get more...
Since wala nangyari in the last 3 years, baguhin mo, baka sakali, at least
Baka,
there's more
diba?
chance.
Oo.
Revival,
Oo.
Lagyan ng abono, kumbaga.
a different persuasion, different way of thinking, get the young bloods, Kasi parang pag tuwing may problema, haven't you noticed, there's an SSS increase in premiums, there's
And yet we give bonuses,
there's
large
energy,
bonuses.
and then they'd say, bayaan mo na, ganyan talaga. So what is government for?
Oo nga.
Di ba ang government, again, we go back to the social contract theorist. May social contract, kaya tayo
Correct.
nag-agree, di
Correct.
ba?
That they're
Because
there.
you can do a better service
Correct.
instead of us doing it alone.
Correct.
So ano nangyari? Di ba? Parang
Wala.
hello. So kung hindi mo magawa yun, di paltan mo yung tao mo.
Correct.
And you're just talking of 1.5 years.
The president and his cabinet and the leaders should not only concentrate in the local, no? They should have a world view to
agree.
better understand the world and where we sit with them so we can understand na we're not here because we're lucky and we're good. No, there's a movement. Sumasama tayo, maski pa paano.
And appreciate our unique role.
Ayun, appreciation of the roles.
Oo, kasi yung unique
Wala,
role
kulang,
natin,
kulang tayo appreciation.
Kasi ang tingin lang natin US. Di ba? But the unique role of the Philippines, you're centrally there, located between Pacific
That's
and
true.
Atlantic.
We're right in the middle.
Di ba? There's got to be something, sabi nga nila, God blessed us so much to place us in the middle.
That's true. with the perfect weather.
Diba?
With the perfect weather. I love
And
the
all
heat.
the
Ako, ayoko-
resources.
Yeah, all
I mean,
the resources.
The reason why the Chinese are coming in are because of the mineral resources, and
Yes.
that is the same with the U.S. So
true.
let's call a spade, and work
same
at least,
interests.
yes, for our own advantage.
But Mlou, ako, in the 60s, we had a steel mill. Not only one, but a number. It's 2013, we have none.
yeah.
Without a steel mill, you can't really go forward into the industrialized world. So give it that. Let's look at agriculture. We are not mechanized. We're not industrialized when it comes to mechanization of agriculture. And yet we have the land. Nakatuwangwang ang lupa. Pag umulan, things will be okay. And then pagdating ng summer and the rest of the year, one crop area. Sayang when we could till the earth. We've got mines, like you said, natural resources. Pero we know China needs a lot of natural resource. We know certain countries in Europe require it as well, especially with the growth of the internet and all these special materials. And China, di ba? And yet, wala tayong ginagawa. We don't even allow it. The government doesn't want to take a proper stand when it comes to mining. And yet we have little-scale mining which eats up the place all over the place.
Oo. And so hazardous.
Yes, pag small scale,
Oo, diba?
even so. But ano nangyayari? Ba't ganun? Do you think we stand a chance in keeping up, or are we gonna slide back at the
I
rate
hope
we're
we
going?
don't. I hope we,
Can we still slide back?
yes.
Kaya pa.
Oo.
But yet the president says we're the emerging tiger. Can you see it?
I think that's propaganda line. I go by, ano ba yun si Juan de la Cruz?
Oh, hindi
Diba,
pwede,
the
no?
moment si Juan de la Cruz says, "Oy, ma'am, nakakakain ako ng 3 beses maghapon." O,
Tsaka
ma'am,
wala nang squatter, wala nang sa tondo
Oo,
nakikita mo tabi
oo.
ng tulay. Walang ganun. Lahat may bahay, maski pa paano. May tubig, may kuryente, and then trabaho kung meron. Kasi ang dami rin natin tao, kaya
ang
natin.
dami. We're
we can
hitting,
employ.
we're hitting 100 million by the end of this year.
O, biro mo. 100
Imagine
million.
that.
Tsaka our population is young.
Young.
We're not near as close as Japan,
Oo.
where it's reversed, di ba? Baliktad. So we can play a big part in this growing world. Sayang sana lang sa science and technology. No? Hindi tayo manguna-una doon. Ba't
Pero
kaya?
alam mo, napakagaling natin sa technology.
Mga inventor.
Oo, di ba? I mean, even yung technology, yung paggamit ng mga technology these days, napakagaling natin. BPO, ang galing
I know.
natin.
But I think the BPO has been an accidental opportunity because we, 50 years ago, when we were kids, we were taught to speak English. And everything around us English. Even TV was English.
Right.
Radio was English.
Right.
Ngayon, baliktad. Lahat gusto nila. Ang lalim nga ng Tagalog. Oh, minsan, nahihirapan ako intindihin eh. Parang may nagsusulat ng bagong letra, araw-araw, palalim ng palalim. Makinig ka lang sa DCWM. Ano sinabi? Ang bilis-bilis pa. Hirap. Ako hindi ko masabayan eh.
Siguro, Harry, that is a problem because we do not know where we're going
So walang
as a
identity.
nation. Not the identity, it's more of saan ba tayo dadalhin ng Pangulo? Ay, ano ba yung vision niya?
So yung liderato dapat klaro. Maliwanag
syempre,
sana.
diba?
Oh,
Kasi
bagay.
nung election, may social contract, marami tayong pangako. Nasaan na?
Wala nangyayari.
Kasi, kumbaga, kung ikaw ang leader, visionary, you'd know where to bring the country. Meaning, I can see it now, I can smell it now, this is where we're going. But if until now, we're still drawing our roadmaps, then there's something wrong.
So there's no longer any room for indecision, kumbaga.
Now, he was
Hindi
the
na
one who
dapat.
said last 2 minutes. And it's last 2 minutes, it's crunch time. You don't draw up roadmaps.
Hindi na pwede, no?
Diba?
Hindi na pwede.
You just do what you have there and come up with a legacy agenda.
Legacy.
Oo.
You have to think about that, eh.
Kasi na-derail sila eh. The legacy agenda should have started June 2013.
That's right, last year. No? To
Oo.
give them enough time
Right.
to catch
Where do
up.
I want? What will I leave?
Behind, yes.
Diba? So now, there's Tiplex. They're claiming Tiplex.
Pero kay GMA yan eh.
Diba?
Kay GMA yan
so, yung mga ganon, ano yung nasimulan niya?
Hindi, kaisa-isa, alam ko, sa Araneta Avenue, yung underpass.
Yeah.
Yun ang ginawa niya.
Oh.
Pero gaya ng nanay niya, dadalawa, yung sa Ross Boulevard tsaka sa Buendia, yung under overpass. That's about it. Oh, 3 naman. Dalawa sa Ross Boulevard. Dalawa ba yun? Isa lang. Isa lang sa Ross Boulevard tsaka isa sa Buendia at EDSA. May chance pa naman tayo. Hindi pa naman pwede.
May
We can't
chance
give
if
up.
they're going to work 24/7. Like, one perfect example, school building backlog.
Okay.
Can we not,
Keep up, yeah, at least
and then, no, really, zero backlog. Can we not do that?
at the very least. No?
Diba? That's investing to your young population.
But ako, even before the buildings, I find that the public schools, the DepEd, they may be into infrastructure and everything, but parang maraming kulang eh. Our students, not even in high school, not even in the tertiary level, they don't come up with any understanding of the real politics that goes on today. If you notice, the graduates, they don't understand how the politics work. I mean, why do they keep electing dynasties? And they say so many bad things about these dynasties, but in their very areas, in their own provinces, puro dinastiya.
So, policy. What do I leave behind? You already have your RH law. Hopefully, the Supreme Court will rule in favor of it.
You don't know. Alam mo, meron favor, meron against.
Oo, yeah. FOI, get it
Yan,
out.
FOI,
Diba?
FOI.
Anti-dynasty, get it out.
Yan, yan.
Party reform,
Party
get it out.
reform. Oh, dapat.
I mean, these things, pwedeng hindi concrete kasi policy. But when you stand there and when you talk, when you mention the name Noynoy Aquino, what goes to your mind? Diba? There's got to be something.
Astute. No? Autistic.
No
Yes.
naman. Diba, there's got to be
Pun
something.
intended,
Oo,
okay.
there's got to be something there that will remind you of the 6 years of Aquino 2.
Dapat, no? Every
Dapat.
president.
Oo.
At least kay GMA, ako, I can recite it. 65,000 kilometers of roads, 1,000 bridges, initiated to a great extent the RORO, which tinigil ni Pinoy.
Yung nautical highway.
Yung
maganda
nautical
yan.
highway, di ba? Pero natigil nitong gobyerno nito eh.
And we should probably in the next administration, we should learn naman to acknowledge what are really good deliverables and what are the faults. But we
Face the
cannot do
music.
away and just say the 9 years or the 6 years of another leader were all corrupt or fault-ridden years.
We have about 5 minutes left. Very quickly, Mlou. Elections in 2014. Are we going to start looking for elections? Maghanap na tayo. Is it Bina? Is it going to be Rojas? Is it going to be Ping? Because Ping can now derive a base because of being the rehabilitation SAR. So in tatlo, sino pa kaya lalaban dyan? Ano?
I think there'll be other names.
Pero same names, the same dynasties, the same oligarchs.
There might be a few surprises along the way if we can convince them to run.
During the election time, you help many of the candidates go to you, to Publicus, and they seek your help. Professional lobby, professional PR, professional disposition of where they are, where they stand, and how to spend their funds wisely. Sino tingin mo magiging bata mo? Ikaw, sino tingin mo? Or it doesn't really matter, you look at the way it goes?
No. Usually, I react based on the experience of the previous. So for me, right now, competence is number 1. Yes, I want an honest president, but honesty is not my number 1.
So, between honesty and corrupt, incompetence, straight, what would you rather between the two?
I'd rather go with the competent.
Ibang kompetensya, no? By far, it will outshadow any corruption if necessary.
Oo. Kasi yung corruption, you cannot, it's like prostitution. You
can
cannot
never
legislate it
I
out,
cannot.
di ba?
Let me see, what country is that is trying to do that? In Germany.
Yeah.
Germany.
Poverty, you cannot legislate
No, I'm sorry,
it out.
France.
France ba?
Oh, France is trying to. They're actually, for the first time in this world, they're actually getting rid of prostitution. Somehow, I laugh at it, like Colorado, opening up with the marijuana, di ba?
Oh.
Parang, is it 2014, really? How can you get rid of prostitution? Of all countries, the French. Di ba? Hindi parang pwede.
Parang inalis mo yung wine.
Oo,
di ba?
hindi pwede. Hindi na sila pwede mag-wine.
Competence is very important. The ability to work, yung work ethic is very valuable to me. Because, the presidency is a lonely job.
Should we look already at leaders now habang maaga?
Yes. I think...
You can't do that last minute. Eh, no?
Hindi, mahirap. Kasi, again, phenomenon of 2010. Do we wait for A white horse?
Oo nga, no? Yung namatay si Cory, no?
Oo.
Kaya pumasok siya, no?
And then
Oh,
decide just because of Cory.
that's what happened.
That's what happened.
Nabigla lahat eh. Lahat tayo na-discourage
Because
eh.
of Cory, kawawa naman, let's reward the son.
Ah,
Without looking at the son's
correct.
accomplishments.
Competence, Actually, wala naman accomplishment. I'm sorry.
Well, he was able to win several elections in the House and the Senate.
Okay.
Now, competence-wise, you know.
Yeah, okay. So actually, dapat ito 2014, for those body politic and for those willing to serve, dapat ngayon na sila lumabas. Huwag kayo magdi-decide 2016, tatakbo ako ng mayor sa lugar ko. Ngayon pa lang, umpisahan mo na.
Oo.
Kumbaga.
And sana yung reform sa political system maayos bago mag-2016.
Sino ang problema dyan? Reform. Is it brillantes in the COMELEC or is it the people in the culture because they
Yung
get paid?
kultura at yung makina.
So we gotta get rid of
Oo,
smart.
sa tingin ko,
Smartmatic.
ibang teknolohiya ang dapat na
I
papanahon sa
agree with you.
2016.
I agree with you
Di ba?
there.
Mahirap naman yung,
Sila na eh, no?
di ba? Oo.
Nakalusot na sila ng dalawa.
Oo,
But
diba?
iba naman.
Di ba naman?
I agree. Mlou, it's the end of the show. What message would you like to give the viewers to look at 2014? A short message before we end. Couple of lines.
To the viewers of Talk to Harry, I hope you keep engaged in 2014. 2014 going up to 2016 will be your years in order to look at competent people, competent leaders, and really search the field for the right leader who will bring this nation where it should be by 2016.
Thank you very much, Mlou. Ladies and gentlemen, before we end the show, very quickly, I open a line. It's pre-recorded every time I open the show, and I'll continue doing this for the rest of the year as well. You are what you read. You are what you watch. And you are what you hear. Other than that, it's all the perception. Perception is all you have. So, pag-ingat-ingatan po natin to. Kaya huwag lang bababad sa nakikinig sa isang tao o si Mang Jo sa kalye kung ano sinabi niya, yun ang tama. Alam nyo, kaawa-awa naman, parang buhay, tas gigising ka isang araw, ay, hindi ko pala alam, ang buong buhay ko, hindi ko alam, pero everything was a lie. I hope you've enjoyed our show. Thank you very much. My name's Harry Tambuatko. This is Talk to Harry. Maraming salamat. Thank you, Mlou.
Thank you. This is
You are what you watch.